Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing abrupt climate change, and I hope you all are enjoying the reading of the New York Times article, Losing Earth. I wanted to actually not lose the thread of the daily updates about what's going on in the climate. So I wanted to do just a short little extra venture into some news articles. Very quickly, this is from yesterday. Mendocino Complex fire explodes to 229,000 acres, making it one of the largest on record. This is in Northern California. A massive pair of fires burning on either side of Clear Lake, about 100 miles north of San Francisco, exploded to nearly 230,000 acres Saturday night, making the conflagration among the largest on record in California and the most pressing of 17 large wildfires across the state. The Mendocino Complex fire, now the sixth largest in recorded state history, has forced thousands of people to evacuate and has burned dozens of homes. Last year's Thomas Fire, which burned 281,000 acres in Santa Barbara and Ventura counties, was California's largest. Farther north, near Redding, residents began returning Saturday to neighborhoods ravaged by the Carr Fire, which has killed 6 people and destroyed more than 1,000 homes. Dan Kissick was among those returning. He said the fire had overwhelmed his neighborhood faster than anyone expected on July 26th. After more than a week away, Kissick came back to the site of his home on Kellinger Street to find it gone, except for some portions of walls. The night of the fire, Kissick and his family fled when the air filled with smoke and the sky turned an orange-red. They grabbed a suitcase and some shirts, but hadn't packed a proper go bag filled with important belongings or supplies, Kissick said. I basically only took clothes for 2 or 3 days thinking I'll be back. That was obviously a misjudgment, said Kissick, 60. I knew it was bad, but I didn't think it was that bad. Nearly every home on the block was destroyed except for a 2-story with scorched palm trees in the backyard. Kissick said he considered himself lucky in the grand scheme of things. He and his family had a relative to stay with the night they fled. The next day, they snagged a rental property nearby before those were all snapped up by the thousands of other evacuees. Nobody got hurt, so you've got to look at the good. He said, I know not everybody was as lucky. More than 4,500 firefighters stationed in 2 Shasta County base camps have battled the 154,000-acre blaze for nearly 2 weeks, facing triple-digit temperatures, winds up to 30 miles an hour, and desert dry air. Numerous media reports have blamed the start of the massive blaze on a vehicle towing a trailer with flat tire, its metal rim creating sparks as it rolled along. In an interview Saturday evening, California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection officials said the cause of the fire remained under investigation. Governor Jerry Brown visited the Fire Command Center at the county fairgrounds on Saturday. Increased year-round fire activity was the new normal for the state, he said. The governor said he had asked President Trump to issue a major disaster declaration to aid the firefighting and recovery effort. He has done it in the past. I am confident he will do it again, Brown said. The Carr Fire, which has affected communities around Whiskeytown Lake and Sacramento River, is moving into areas where it will be more difficult to control, fire behavior analyst Dan Boursier said. Years of drought have left California's forests more vulnerable, and so far this year, the area around the fire has seen 33 days of 100-degree temperatures, the National Weather Service said. It hasn't rained in Redding or Anderson area in 71 days. The calendar is saying it's August. The fuel is telling us it's September, Boursier told firefighters during a morning briefing Saturday. The fire was 41% contained and expected to burn north, deeper into Trinity County forest land around Blue Mountain, officials said. 2 firefighters have been killed battling the blaze, along with 4 civilians, including a 70-year-old woman who died trying to shield her great-grandchildren, ages 4 and 5, with a wet blanket as her house burned around them. Forecast for the days ahead includes more intense, dry heat and wind, awful firefighting weather. The large wildfires burning in the state have scorched over 450,000 acres, displaced around 40,000 residents, and are being fought by more than 14,000 firefighters from around the state and country. Among them is the Ferguson fire near Yosemite National Park, which has burned more than 81,000 acres. Yosemite Valley has been closed since July 25th. Back in Redding, Marilyn and Nick Peters treaded lightly on the top of their home's burnt remains Saturday, occasionally hunching over to sift through a pile of rubble. Nick, 49, tried to find the silver lining in the situation. They had lost their home, one of at least 1,600 destroyed in a span of a few days last week, but they survived, were insured, and managed to save a few mementos. I found my ring. It still has all the diamonds, Marilyn said with a half smile. Nick reached into a pile of stuff on the driveway and pulled out a round, flat piece of cement with Marilyn's handprint from when she was 5 years old. I knew this wouldn't burn, he joked. Nick, who works for Pacific Gas and Electric Company, said he'd returned to the neighborhood with crews a week ago to begin restoring power. Then I was numb, he said. Today, it hit me. Moving on to another interesting story. World's hottest rain fell in California. Earlier this month, the world's hottest rain fell from the sky in California. It was 119 degrees Fahrenheit on July 24th in Imperial, California when it rained, according to weather expert Jeff Masters, prompting the hottest ever rainfall. The rain was so hot that one local resident reported it fell hard on their heart and made it difficult to breathe. Masters is co-founder of the blog Weather Underground, a sort of inside baseball version of the Weather Channel's weather.com. He once flew with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's hurricane hunters, and now is an online weather buff known for his detailed explanations. July 24th, 2018 was one of the hottest days in California history, as a searing heat wave of rare intensity, even for the desert Southwest, sent temperatures soaring to near record levels, Masters said. Death Valley hit 127 Fahrenheit, just 2 degrees short of tying the all-time record for hottest reliably reported temperature. Palm Springs hit 122 Fahrenheit, just 1 degree short of tying its all-time record, and Imperial, California topped out at 121 Fahrenheit. Their hottest day since 124 Fahrenheit was measured on July 28, 1995. The intense heat set the stage for the world's hottest rain, Masters said. The temperature might have gone higher in the Imperial Valley if not for clouds that streamed in during the afternoon, with rain showers beginning to fall at 3:53 Pacific Daylight Time. At the time the rain began, the temperature was an astonishingly high 119 Fahrenheit, a new world record for the hottest temperature ever measured while rain was falling. Most of the rain evaporated since the humidity was only 11 to 15% during the rain event, and only a trace of precipitation was recorded in the rain gauge. Nevertheless, the July 24th rain at 119 Fahrenheit in Imperial sets a new record for the hottest rain in world history. Masters explained that rain at temperatures above 100 degrees is rare because heat at that level is usually accompanied by a high-pressure system with sinking air, which discourages clouds and rainfall. The previous record for the warmest rain occurred in Needles, California on August 13, 2012, when rain fell at temperatures of 118 degrees Fahrenheit. The new world record for the hottest rain got the attention of other global weather experts. Jeff Berardelli, a contributor to CBS News, a self-described climate change communicator, and a soon-to-be weather professor at Columbia University, tweeted on the report, "It means that not only is Earth getting hotter, but also more humid, and that is the link between a changing climate and health. Imperial is in the southeastern Southern California and has a population of 17,000. The area is known as a tough luck region." And then moving on, I'm going to keep this short, this here video. I'm going to read one more article that I thought looked interesting and try to get this up before the night is over. This is from a website called dissidentvoice.org. Does Humanity Deserve to be Extinct? By Gilbert Messier. August 3rd. Time is up. All humans, men and women, are guilty as charged, guilty of abusing other species and the natural world we depend on, guilty, either by greed or ignorance, of abusing other species that sustain our own and driving them to expedient extinction. Wildlife, big and small, is briskly moving towards a vanishing point. From the seas to the land and the skies, the global species disappearing act has reached a catastrophic and probably unstoppable momentum. Mammals are dying, fish are dying, birds and insects are dying. Imagine a world as quiet as Nevada's Death Valley in the summer. A world without trees, insects, and birds, where the heat can reach an unbearable 45 degrees Celsius. Imagine a silent world of death. The Austrian author Robert Musil wrote, almost prophetically, in his grand philosophical novel opus, The Man Without Quality, started in 1921, but published incomplete posthumously in 1943, that mathematics is the source of a wicked intellect that, while making man the lord of the earth, also makes him slave of the machine. Musil was referring to his book's main character, the rather cynical Ulrich. Musil's own cynicism and melancholia had originated from the trauma and darkness of World War I. This gave him an acute sense, just like George Orwell a decade later, of the human propensity for barbaric behavior and collective madness. Musil and Orwell were not cynical and pessimist prophets of doom, but in fact extreme realists ahead of their times. Circa 2018, only delusional fools can be upbeat and optimistic about humanity's future. We can blame ourselves for building the ontological capitalist monstrosity of a world that strictly obeys the criterion of quantity, not quality, a construct where have always triumphs over being, which is by definition the essence of life. Anthropocentrism is humanity's collective narcissism. Life in all its form and diversity, not in a restrictive anthropocentric or a traditional religious sense, should be sacred and celebrated as such. As a cycle, it is also ephemeral and always a delicate and immensely intricate balancing act. As such a harmony, and one could say almost a communion with the natural world, has always been a primordial element to species survival. Our Homo sapiens ancestors, when they appeared on the planet Earth around 200,000 years ago in current-day Ethiopia during the middle of the Paleolithic era, had an unquestionably minimal impact on their ecosystems and likely a great deal of respect for nature. Considering that Earth itself was formed 4.5 billion years ago, according to radiometric data, our Homo sapiens ancestors were humble newcomers. As such, it is likely that these fragile communities had absolutely no sense of ownership of the host planet like most current humans do. Save the planet or our planet, they say. This is something that is paradoxically in the common narrative of people with ecologist pretension. This language itself is an expression of anthropocentrism and should be defined as humanity's collective narcissism. 4.5 billion years versus 200,000 years. Our planet, what an arrogant claim. Save the planet, what an incredible delusion. As if, first of all, we could. Merely saving ourselves from extinction as a species has become a tall order. Planet Earth will be fine, especially without us, and it will eventually heal itself in due time from human abuse and sprout other life forms. This life cycle will go on with or without us. Capitalism's cult of permanent growth is humanity's death wish. There is a wise saying from the French author and medical doctor Francois Rabelais, nature n'endure mutations soudaines sans grande violence. Nature cannot sustain abrupt changes without violence. My French is rusty. We have crossed many lines and reached an impasse. Since the start of the Industrial Revolution in Great Britain in the late 18th century, the Homo economicus was born, a relentless human obsessed with technological progress. With a voracious appetite for resources and limitless consumption, the Homo economicus became quickly and almost universally a worshiper of the capitalist cult of permanent growth. Of course, this cult of growth always requires more consumers and laborers to produce and devour goods and services that are usually harmful to humanity as a whole. Ultimately, in what situationist Situationist Guy Debord described in the 1967 The Society of the Spectacle, commodities and the logic of profit ended up ruling both consumers and workers instead of being ruled by them. Therefore, like a cancer out of control and in complete disregard to the most basic rationality, the Homo economicus has kept multiplying to quench its bloodthirsty capitalist god with human offerings. In May 2018, the human population reached the unbearable level of 7.6 billion. As a reference, in 1850, the world population was 1.2 billion. It is puzzling that anyone in the right mind could argue that such a growth is sustainable, considering that space on Earth and resources are by essence finite. The people in leadership, either in business or government, who had or still have the means to address some of the cataclysmic problems on mankind's horizon should be held accountable for what amounts to crimes against humanity by negligence, stupidity, and inaction. The need for unpopular global measures. The problem in this global society of the spectacle, where things have become deified as ultimate proofs of success, is that the public servants of the res publica, who are supposed to be working for common good, have been at large replaced by the karaoke singers of the universal church of capitalism. They are all interchangeable puppets of the same rarefied corporate masters. The few politicians who appear to some extent to be in charge of their own countries, and for this reason we are called strongmen or authoritarians by the West, are also devoted to capitalism's myth of the benefit of permanent growth. Some have the political means and will, but they just lack a vision that encompasses the great systemic risk we face as a species. They are trapped in their own bubble of power for the sake of power and cannot see out of it. They are trapped in a paradigm paralysis. Meanwhile, outside of the various bubbles of the rich and powerful, our world is at a breaking point. If there is a time where a global political will would be useful to impose unpopular measures, it is now. Measures such as tax increases on couples with several children. Yes, tax cuts for people who have decided not to procreate. Substantial tax increases on vehicles using gas and diesel, followed shortly by an outright ban on such vehicles and a massive expansion of public transportation, massive reforestation projects, worldwide ban on new oil exploration, having a problem reading, prohibitive taxes on oil, a moratorium for all countries to bring from 1.7 trillion to zero within 2 years, the sum spent annually worldwide on their military, and invest all the resources in climate research, especially the reduction and then elimination of excess CO2 from the atmosphere, and a drastic mandatory taxation of the super rich of 90% of their income. Imagine for a minute what a global group of the best scientists could do, united in solving climate change problems and financed by the kind of funding that could quickly reach $2 trillion a year. Imagine having the resources at our disposal to deal with the upcoming 1 billion climate change refugees, either from flooded coastal areas or new desert areas resulting from droughts. To talk about climatic changes so as to seem politically correct is just as criminal as being a climate change denier. Enough talk. The survival of our species requires immediate, drastic actions. Beautiful last paragraph. I really appreciated that. Whether or not all of this is doable, at least this is something of a realistic map, or a more realistic map. Yeah, I would add to this, nationalize all corporations. You could tax the super rich by 90%, maybe, or maybe just nationalize corporations, or nationalize industry is what I'm trying to say, and services. For now, put it under the control of the government, put all private corporations out of business straight up. We don't need them anymore. Let them just have their profits. And if they want to be involved in the reclamation of the earth, if they want to be involved in fixing the earth, then, by all means, welcome them and all their wealth. But, I don't know, maybe we'll have to confiscate their wealth as well, because they'll probably end up mounting some kind of like armed battle against the government or against people trying to fix things. You need them out of the way. But absolutely, any leader, especially in the United States, who wants to tackle this or is willing to tackle this, has to start. We have to start talking about nationalizing industry. We have to start talking about, people, basically goods and services being for people's use and not for their consumption and not for their choices and not, you know what I'm saying? Like, people need to get, food rations, or, maybe we should guarantee food for all for a little while people learn to grow their own food. And just, keep that at just whatever minimalistic necessities that people need to live on. But, we need to take away all the choices and all the options and all the toys and all the cars and all the ATVs and the boats and the trucks and the everything. Like all must go. Like, no, you don't get to have this. You're sharing your transportation with people, and that's that. We're impounding your cars, like that kind of stuff needs to happen, like today, like right now. And I know that's probably impossible for a lot of people to think about, but that's seriously what we all need to start thinking about. Like, we don't get to have this stuff. We just don't. We don't get to have this stuff. The richest country on the earth does not get to have this stuff. And if we're going to lead by example, it needs to start with us. That's all I have for you today. Trying to keep this not too long. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. I will be back tomorrow with the last of Losing Earth and perhaps another video. Until next time, peace.